Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Guys, we are actually broadcasting a little late. This podcast, we should have what's the word? We should have put out a podcast yesterday, but I was at an event with Mike Gallagher, with my colleague Christopher Hart of the American Adversaries, right here for the Salem Media Group in Orlando, Florida, and it was a great Freedom Summit. And it was just so exciting. It was so exciting to see so many people that came out to visit. I think we had a few hundred people there. These are people that are fighting for freedom. These are people that are determined to win, to take back this country, to get it on the right course in November. And so that was just absolutely fabulous. So anyway, if you happen to be listening to this podcast today, or downloading it soon, and you were there, thank you so much for attending. It was a great event, and I was so thankful and blessed to be able to meet many of you out there. So thank you so much for that. All right, guys, I want to get into, I'm going to get into a couple of different things today. I think first off, I want to talk about the Supreme Court rulings today. There was one particularly on the Second Amendment that I want to speak to. I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was a very tough decision. I lean towards Justice Clarence Thomas. He was the one dissent of the 9 justices when it came to this Second Amendment case, this ruling in U.S. versus Rahimi. So we'll get into that in just a second. But I do want to bring you some of the news. Obviously, you have the debate coming up next week in Washington. Where is it going to be held? I think is it going to be held in Washington, D.C.? I'm not even sure where the debate is going to be held. Anyway, I'll be covering the debate, but I have no idea where it's going to be held. That's crazy. That's insane. I'm slacking. Forgive me. All right. So anyway, but we'll be covering the debate. There has been some great news for former President Donald Trump as far as polling is concerned. But I do want to caution listeners again, don't get so caught up in the polls. There are other polls that suggest Donald Trump is lagging when it comes to the elderly vote, even though Biden has a large disfavorable, if you will, or unfavorable rating amongst the elderly when it came to that Iowa poll that we looked into the other day. But nonetheless, he still leads Trump on that. But I do want to give you some good news. Trump, at least in these latest polls, are leading in the swing states. Guys, we're a long ways out. I kind of hate playing this game because I don't like getting people just psyched up, but it is a snapshot of where we are right now. It doesn't mean that these numbers will remain. It doesn't mean that these numbers will be banked, if you will, when it comes to votes, but it is what it is right now. So you've got a new Emerson poll that states or that finds former President Trump with a slight edge over Biden in Arizona, 47-43, Georgia, 45-41. I feel like there's a larger divide than there was. Wisconsin, 47-44, Nevada, 46-43. Obviously, these are the swing states. Pennsylvania, 47-45. You have former President Trump going out to do a rally in Pennsylvania tomorrow. We'll see how that shakes out. Michigan, 46-45. Of course, he won Michigan and upset Hillary Clinton in 2016. Biden turned around Biden turned around and somehow got it in 2020. Let's put it. I believe the system was rigged. I'm just being real. Biden splits Trump in Minnesota 45-45. Now, I should have had this. Oh, man, I should have had Tony get this other video clip because I don't know if it was Van Jones or who it was that was so concerned that, wow, Trump is tied with him in Minnesota. That is a scary notion. But I do want to caution you when it comes to independents. I did see a poll earlier as well. And this is why I say you can't rest on your laurels. I don't even know it. Where did that come from, Gabe? Did your family invent that? Rest on your laurels? Like, where did that come from? I don't even know what that means, but I understand the context of it. But all right, you can't get lazy. Let me put it that way. Because I wouldn't say rest on you. I say it a lot, ironically, because it's like I don't know what else to say. But don't get lazy. All right, don't get lazy because I still believe as great as these numbers are, obviously you have a man that has 34 felony counts, regardless of how you feel about that sham trial. And I just expressed how I feel about that sham trial. But nonetheless, 34 felony counts. A lot of people are going to view that unfavorably. And so I do believe that Trump is suffering from that. I want to share with you, if I can find this online real quick. I did see a poll. I think Steve Deace posted this poll earlier and just cautioning. Oh, where is it? Now I can't find it. Of course I can't find it. Okay. All right. Unfortunately, I can't find it, but it was a
Why are you gay?
Unfortunately, it was a fair warning. It was another poll. And again, I know a lot of people are, oh, here it is. Gallup Party ID polling is perhaps the most accurate public polling forecaster in the public polling area. So Gallup, do you consider yourself a Republican or a Democrat or an independent? This is shift versus April. Democrats are up 30%. Republicans up 28%. Independent up 42%. Or independent, I'm not up, but independent 42%. Democrat 30%. Republican 28%. Maybe that's the percentage of the people that actually took the polling. Broken up. Yeah, I'm assuming that's it because that adds up to 100. All right. And then with Indy leaners, I'm assuming that's Indiana. Democrats 48 plus 8. Republicans 44 down 3. 2024 average with Indy leaners. All right. So I'm going to tap onto that. Unfortunately, I don't have my glasses, so I can barely see. So it says, asked of independents as of today, do you lean more to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party? This is, where are we at? The last one that they have is May 1st through 23rd. People were leaning towards the Democrat Party, 48 to 44%. All right. So those polls are out there with independents. Again, that's in May. Maybe things have shifted since then. I don't know. But apparently that was the last indicator there. And I just always want to be mindful. Listen, I know that there is some hard feelings in the Republican Party because of the primary. But I want to make sure that I share all the information, because in the long run, I do believe that it's important. Even though we have a lot of crappy Republicans, we also have some good ones. And I just want to stop the bleeding. That's where I'm at right now. I want to stop the bleeding. I'd like to make America recognizable again. That is one of my goals. But that's in the news. Trump doing well in the swing states in polling. However, I just caution you, Charlie Kirk, I heard him on Mike Gallagher's show earlier as well, and he was cautioning people, listen, just to be a realist, Trump is still not performing as well with the elderly, with the boomers, as he should be, and as well as I believe he's performed before. So that's just something to keep in mind. There's still a lot of work to do, but the excitement and the polling that you see, it is a snapshot. And I do believe that it is indicative that people are leaning towards Trump. I do believe that he has momentum. I do believe that perhaps if the election was held today, he might win it, but a lot could happen. I do think there's a lot on the line for the debate for both candidates, frankly. Honestly, I just think, I know a lot of people are saying that Joe Biden has to just make sure that he doesn't poop his pants and he has to stay upright. I actually think that he needs to do more than that. There's no doubt about it that no matter what happens, and I'm going to brace you for this right now, but no matter what happens, I believe that CNN, unless he just has a brain freeze for a very long time, kind of like Mitch McConnell did, or like we've seen Biden do before, but not as long as Mitch McConnell when we saw that. Oh, my Lord. But if he has something like that occur, then I think that would be devastating for Joe Biden. There's no doubt in my mind, and we all know this. I'm not saying anything new. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said before, but he's going to be jacked up on something. Whatever they give that fool, it works. You know, it works, but I don't think that it can sustain. Obviously, he's still going to have some moments in time where his brain just kind of freezes up and he loses track, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I think it's going to be extremely interesting. He's going to have to show, I think, or make cogent arguments for his positions. I do believe that. I do believe that independents are going to be watching him very closely. Democrats will probably vote for him either way. The vast majority of them will. But when it comes to Trump, I think Trump just needs to be patient. I think Trump needs to be, totally focused on policy and just do a compare and contrast. Hey, Joe Biden, this is what's happening now. This is what was happening under my administration. I love what I heard Newt Gingrich said. Throw some questions out there, so I did this, you did this, explain or whatever. The way Newt framed it was really good, framed like only Newt could. But anyway, it was a good idea. You don't react to stuff, don't overreact, don't talk over them. Obviously, I think this format will be decent for Trump. I don't like the crowd in debates, so I personally like this style. I just don't like who's hosting. I don't trust CNN. I do believe that it'll be basically a 3-on-1 or whomever is going to be in the room. Obviously, Dana Bash and Jim Acosta? No, Jake Tapper. So obviously it's going to be at least a 2-on-1 with the former president. But I think all Trump needs to do is just focus on his record, focus on how Biden has destroyed the country and what he wants to do to make America great again, to repair it. And I think he can be calm. He can be cordial. He should be funny. And I think he should allow people to see a different part of him. I think if Trump just allows people to see a different part of him, I think he wins the debate. And I don't think I think I want him to have the substance because people need to hear the substance. But I also think people are looking at whether they can endure, if you will, Trump again, if they want to embrace him again. Because remember, there's a lot of people that simply do not like the fact that the options that we have for the presidency, whether you agree with it or not, it's just a fact that the only options that we have are Trump and Biden. They didn't want to go there. Anyway. All right. So that's in the news. Let me share with you some more news real quickly. Pull that up if I can get to it. Let's see here. Oh, there were some housing numbers. And I see EJ Antoni wrote about how Biden is fudging the numbers when it comes to the employment numbers, how they're worse than we even thought. But I'll have to get into that another day. This is from Parents Defending Education. San Francisco School District provides training to staff that labels perfectionism and individualism as white supremacy culture. Oh, my goodness. Oh, man. They're characteristics of white supremacy culture. Provides training that promotes illegal immigration with the idea that no one is illegal on stolen land. Now, if these guys really believed in what they said, or if they really had a modicum of understanding when it comes to history, you could make that argument virtually for every single land, perhaps except the Garden of Eden. I mean, this is absolutely insane. The way of the world is that people fought, people pillaged, people took land, they took slaves. That was the way of the world. And frankly, it still is in some places. And if Biden remains in office with this latest this coalition that seems to be forming between North Korea, Iran, Russia, China, guys, I mean, things could get really scary really fast. So maybe we'll get back to that point in time. But getting back to this story, again, Parents Defending Education submitted a public records request to the San Francisco Unified School District seeking any materials provided or shown to staff during training regarding students who are immigrants or in the United States illegally. The district provided PDE with hundreds of pages of documents. One document that PDE received was titled Characteristics of White Supremacy Culture, quote unquote. The document has a list of perceived characteristics of white supremacy, including perfectionism, sense of urgency, worship of the written word, individualism, and objectivity. Wow. So individualism and objectivity, objective truth, worship of written word. I'm assuming they are meaning the Bible, a sense of urgency, as if those attributes don't exist except anywhere else but the United States of America. This is, You realize how dumb you have to be to buy into this stuff, and people are teaching this stuff. No wonder our kids are so dumb. It is absolutely insane. Not all of them, obviously, but man, they are dumbing kids down left and right. This is interesting. Reform UK Party is actually gaining steam. I'll get into that and save that for another day. Disney's, we have a video, but James O'Keefe has done a video that's out, but it's 20 minutes long. And quite frankly, we didn't look at it in time to cut it before the podcast. So I didn't want to sit up here for 20 minutes and go through it. But let me just give you the skinny on it, if you will. Hat tip, this is from Outkick. This is a surprise to no one. It's a not so well kept secret that Walt Disney Company often prioritizes skin color in hiring over things like experience, ability, and qualifications. Of course, the company is smart, so they try to hide this, but a damning video captured by O'Keefe Media Group, founded by James O'Keefe, shows a Disney executive, a guy by the name of Michael Giordano, telling an undercover reporter all about the discriminatory practices. Certainly, and this is a quote, certainly there have been times where there's no way we're hiring a white male for this. Man, this is what Giordano said. This is the Disney executive. The reporter suggests that this was an quote unquote unspoken agreement, but Giordano shared that it's actually been said in front of him. However, he said that they are careful how they message those things to outside parties like talent agents. Man, absolutely unbelievable. There's no way we're hiring a white male. That is absolutely crazy. And here's what I would say to this, if it can be proven, because let's face it, sometimes people will get in a camera and they'll just talk their mouth. I'm amazed with some of these videos that I watch of these people just spilling the beans. I'm just like in shock. I'm oftentimes thinking, is this fake? Why are these people saying so much? It's insane. But apparently people just really like to talk. But with this video getting out, if there's anybody that happens to be white that feels as if they were passed over or perhaps not hired because they were white, Disney's got a serious lawsuit on their hands. This is dumb. This is dumb. And it is not reverse racism. It's racism. All right. Racism is an issue of the heart. It doesn't matter what skin color you have on the outside. Racism is an issue of the heart, and it is a sin before God. So just know that to be the case. Sorry, I had to take a swig, which I've gotten better. I'm not doing, but for whatever reason, I am extremely thirsty today. All right, let me just go through a couple of things that I saw, headlines that I saw on Real Clear Politics that I think are important. One, Trump trails by just 8% in a New York poll. That's interesting. Missouri AG, I'll get to that. Missouri AG launches a probe into the DOJ coordination into the Trump cases. This, I want to get into that. I mean, this is just absolutely insane. Guys, I'm sorry. It is lawfare. Lawfare against the right has been unjustified. I do believe that there is some lawfare that should be used against leftists and communists that exist in our government, using the rule of law, the laws that are on the books, to indict people. I mean, if the laws exist where we can indict people on the left, it should absolutely happen, because there's no way this stuff is going to stop. These people in the DOJ that are just, I mean, literally creating law as they go, this persecution of Trump, this stuff has got to stop. And honestly, it's not going to stop until or unless Republicans or conservatives and even Democrats say, guys, this is far enough. You've done this. You've broken this law. We're going to go after you for this. In other words, they've got to pay the price. They've got to pay the price. There's no way this stuff stops if they don't. American shoppers are cutting back big time, as a matter of fact, as a result of Bidenomics. So if you think the economy is getting better, it is not. This is from CNN. Evidence is mounting that the American shopper is cutting back. According to CNN, sales at U.S. retailers rose last month at an unexpectedly weak pace as Americans continue to deal with still high inflation and elevated interest rates. Sales declined the most at gas stations, down 2.2%. In May, excluding that, sales were up by 3 points. last month, American shoppers also pulled back on purchases at furniture stores and shops that sell building materials and garden equipment. Meanwhile, spending was the strongest at specialty stores that sell sporting goods. That's interesting. Books, musical instruments. Those jumped by 2.8%. Now, that's really fascinating to me. That's fascinating to me because I see a trend in that. So sales jumped at sporting goods, books, and musical instruments. That's kind of old school, right? That's getting away from all the digital technology, sporting goods, books, musical instruments, using your hands, using your brains. I like that. Monthly retail sales have increased 4 times over the past 6 months through May, but figures for April and March were revised lower. According to the Commerce Department, inflation is down from the 40-year highs of 2 years ago, but it does remain elevated. It remains high, and it's still growing. It's just growing up. It's just elevating slowly, not as fast, not as quickly, but leave it to CNN to try to make themselves sound good on that front. All right, here's what I want to do. Let me go ahead and get into this Supreme Court case. I thought it was really important. Let me just double check. And Gabe, anyway, let me just double check on the Supreme Court case. Let me check on the cut sheet real quick so that I knows what I be speaking about. All right. So anyway, guys, before I go further on this, let me just remind you to subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast: Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. Por favor. Don't forget to help out our sponsors, by the way. Mike Lindell at mypillow.com. Mike Lindell at mypillow.com. I don't know if today is the last day for that $25 extravaganza. I got to go buy some stuff myself, to be honest with you. All right. So mypillow.com. Promo code Carl, C-A-R-L, or give them a call, 800-858-0263, 800-858-0263, $25 extravaganza on the MyPillow with Giza fabric, on the MyPillow slippers, a bath towel set, dish towel set, you name it, mypillow.com, promo code Carl. All right, and check out those deals, $25 extravaganza. I forgot to double check, but I believe this might be the last day of that sale. So double check it. MyPillow.com, promo code Carl. I've got to make a quick. Okay. All right. So anyway, we'll you can check into that. I'm sorry. I apologize, guys. This is really ghetto fabulous. I'm ashamed of myself, but I am literally trying to go back through the cut sheet. I'm trying to. We have several different cuts for you. I'm just debating on which ones I should play for this particular podcast. We're actually going to be breaking up a couple of podcasts. That might be a little too much inside baseball, but the truth of the matter is I really want to delve into the SCOTUS decision on the Second Amendment. I really do believe that it is a very important decision, even though it was a difficult decision. And so I think that it's something we should talk about. And I do think this court has been doing a relatively good job of keeping us free or returning our liberties to us. We've yet to hear on the immunity case against former President Donald Trump. We've yet to hear on the Fisher case. You guys might remember the Fisher case where literally fishermen were involved. And I forget the bureaucracy that was involved. To be frank with you, but basically you had fishermen that had to pay the federal government, hire the federal government to the federal government that was regulating them. I'm getting this story all mixed up. Here's what happened. Okay, so fishermen basically only have so many spots on a boat, all right? And so I forget and we did an interview on this. I mean, even before I think a lot of people were talking about it, we did an interview on this particular case and the attorney that was involved in the case. But they were forcing fishermen to hire government officials that were regulating their boats and their catches. It was absolutely insane. And it's only because the federal government stopped funding them, so they made citizens pay for it. I mean, this is unconstitutional, in my opinion. No bureaucracy should be able to do that. It was absolutely insane. So that is the Fisher case. A bureaucracy doesn't have the right to force you to pay for them in that way. I mean, it's insane. So anyway, I'm not explaining that well, really. But that is the gist. That is the gist of it. It is an absolute crazy case, and it'll have serious ramifications. Okay, so let me just go through this. Let's play this. This is video clip number 2 because this is important too. I think it relates to court battles, obviously, but the Missouri AG alleges a connection between the Biden White House and the Trump prosecutions. So let's go ahead and roll that video, por favor, Gabe.
A serious accusation about former President Trump's legal battles coming from Missouri's Attorney General. Republican Andrew Bailey says, quote, "Thanks to evidence that has come to light, my office has reason to believe Biden's corrupt Department of Justice is the headquarters of the illicit prosecutions against President Trump. He's demanding a whole list of documents from the DOJ on their contacts, their emails, their text messages between all of these offices of the people that you see on your screen, including Letitia James, Fani Willis, and Alvin Bragg. We asked the Justice Department for a response. No response from them as of yet. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey joins me now. General Bailey, good to have you with us. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me on.
So explain to me, what is the evidence, the clear evidence that links the White House to these prosecutions, which we have heard former President Trump claim all along, and there are a number of sort of ties between the teams. But what clear evidence has come to light that causes you to go this step further?
Well, President Trump is absolutely right. The illicit nature of these witch hunt prosecutions is self-evident to anyone paying attention, broadly speaking, but specifically Alvin Bragg's prosecution at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. It's not supported by the facts or the law. And I would remind viewers that at the end of the day, all attorneys are held to a certain rules of professional conduct, and prosecutors are actually held to a heightened standard of rules. It's illicit to bring a frivolous case, and that's what's happening here. But what we're not focused enough on, and what this request seeks to expose, is the illicit motivations of the prosecutors themselves. Alvin Bragg sued President Trump and then campaigned on a promise to prosecute President Trump. He is self-interested in this case because President Trump is a political opponent of the people that Alvin Bragg is backing. Same with Matthew Colangelo. This was a top official in Biden's Department of Justice that until recently was being paid by President Biden's administration and has now been deployed by the DOJ to assist Alvin Bragg and is now leading the prosecution of President Trump in Manhattan. Again, this is an individual, Matthew Colangelo, who is a longtime supporter of the DNC. And so the political motivations of these two individuals is also self-evident, which gives rise to the clear accusation, proven accusation, right, that their motivations are illicit. They should have been disqualified from.
All right, we'll hold it there. You get the gist of the video, and what the AG of Missouri is arguing is that this infringes on our right to be able to vote for the candidate that we want. So listen, guys, obviously I'm not an attorney. We'll have to wait and see where this goes, but I think that it's a smart play. I think it's a play that needs to happen. It's obvious that these persecutions against the former president are politically motivated. And again, I don't even know if there's, I mean, the standing would be, listen, I'm a Missouri voter. You guys are trying to take out my candidate, so I'm going to sue you because you're trying to take out my candidate by unjust means. And that's basically the crux of the situation. But I just found it very interesting, so I wanted to talk about that. All right, now let me just real quick get into this Supreme Court hearing, because I thought it was actually very, very interesting. Before I do, though, I want to talk to you about Priority Gold. Economists warn that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and your 401k account. I can't speak right now, as the stock market braces for impact. With inflation on the rise and global uncertainty looming, it's clear why central banks and savvy Americans are turning to gold in times like this. Proverbs 21:20 reminds us to preserve what we built. Right now, that wisdom points us towards gold. If you haven't had your eye on gold, it's time to make it a priority. My name is Carl Jackson, and I urge you to call my friends at Priority Gold to find out how they can help you diversify your savings and physical gold and silver. All you have to do is call 800-405-GOLD. Again, that number, 800-405-GOLD, or visit prioritygold.com/golden for a free gold info guide. Plus, see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Call 1-800-405-GOLD, 1-800-405-GOLD to speak with a gold specialist, or visit prioritygold.com/golden to learn more. Again, that number, 1-800-405-GOLD, 1-800-405-GOLD. Okay. From the Daily Signal, the Supreme Court upheld the federal law banning gun ownership by those under domestic violence restraining orders on Friday morning. Okay, so here's where I stand on the Second Amendment. And I wasn't sure. I wasn't always clear on this, if I'm being honest, and I am being honest with you. But I've come to the conclusion that I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. Now, having said that, I understand that this is a very tough, and I understand that this is a very logical decision. However, I align with Justice Clarence Thomas on this decision. So let's just go through it briefly here. In the ruling, it's called U.S. versus Rahimi. The court rejected Zaki Rahimi's claim that the statute that prohibits the possession of firearms by persons like himself that were subjected to domestic violence restraining orders violates the Second Amendment. All right. So the court issued a ruling, 8-1 ruling, with Justice Clarence Thomas, again, the only one dissenting. So here's what Chief Justice John Roberts had to say, and I quote, Since the founding, the nation's firearm laws have included regulations to stop individuals who threaten physical harm to others and misusing firearms, he said. As applied to the facts here, this fits within this tradition, and he named the law, or the section of the law. And John Roberts wrote for the majority. Rahimi, which is the guy that was indicted for possessing a gun, while he had basically a restraining order, all right, for alleged assault against his ex-girlfriend, was explicitly prohibited from owning or possessing a firearm. So, all right, so he had a restraining order against his girlfriend. And we've all heard these cases. This is what makes this so difficult. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this would be an easy decision for me to make, right? But this guy, domestic violence, at least alleged domestic violence, accused of domestic violence. And so it almost feels like the red flag type thing. All right. So because you're accused, you get your gun taken away. Now, let me say this, because I've seen cases, and I know you've seen it as well, and this is what makes this so difficult. A lady has a restraining order. A guy doesn't abide by the restraining order. She doesn't have a firearm. This guy comes back and beats her, kills her. We've heard the stories. I've read and gone through several of them through the years while I've been on air. So I think obviously that's where people's minds are going to go, and understandably so, because that's logical. And I understand it. Let me put it that way. Understand it. But this goes further. Between December 2020 and January of 21, Rahimi was involved in a series of violent incidents in Arlington, Texas. This included multiple shootings and a hit and run. So this fool, obviously, straight up thug, straight up a dangerous person, participating in other shootings and a hit and run, I think, where he brandished the weapon as well. Police afterwards searched Rahimi's home. They found a rifle and a pistol, leading to Rahimi's indictment for violating federal law by possessing a firearm while he was under a domestic violence restraining order to possess firearms. So obviously, while he had that restraining order on, he couldn't possess firearms. And that's been the standing with the law. But Rahimi challenged that law as a violation of his Second Amendment right to bear arms. So what the court found was that Rahimi posed, quote, a credible threat to the physical safety of others, quote unquote, adding that the quote, government offers ample evidence that the Second Amendment permits such individuals to be disarmed. And the operative word there is individuals. All right. That's a very important word in this context. So what courts have upheld was that Rahimi, they withheld a 30-year law, basically, where that Rahimi challenge is unconstitutional. But a 2022 Supreme Court, you guys know the court, I've talked about it before, with New York Rifle and Pistol Association, Inc. versus Bruin, that significantly changed to a law where courts evaluate Second Amendment cases. So before the Bruin case in 2022, lower courts evaluated gun laws using historical research and looking at how well tailored the laws were in achieving, according to the Daily Signal, valuable government interests like public safety. All right. So again, that's the way that they viewed it. But in Bruin, the Supreme Court decided public safety can only be considered for gun violence. That's interesting. If comparable historical laws did so as well. So unlike the regulations struck down in Bruin, according to the Daily Signal, the law at issue, quote, does not broadly restrict arms use by the public generally. All right. So it's so not by the public. They don't restrict laws by the public or broadly restrict arms used by the public generally. But in a case like this Rahimi case, they're just going after this specific individual and these specific types of individuals, which that's another word, types. So we'll get into that. Here's what the Justice John Roberts had to say as well. The Second Amendment is not limited to arms in existence at the founding. He wrote, but it, quote, extends prima facie to all instruments that constitute bearable arms, even those that were not yet in existence, close quote, citing the District of Columbia versus Heller. He says, by that same logic, the Second Amendment permits more than just regulations identical to those existing in 1791. And now, honestly, this makes sense to me. I understand why this ruling was 8-1. I would even understand if this ruling was 9-0. But I appreciate that it was 8-1 because Justice Clarence Thomas is just the bomb. And he understands the threat that an encroaching federal government imposes. That's not to say that all these others don't, because I actually think that their arguments were logical. And this is a very difficult case. But I side with Justice Clarence Thomas. I'm just going to give you part of his dissent. I have not read it in its entirety, but this is just a brief summary from the Daily Signal, the Heritage, obviously aligned with Heritage Foundation or their blog, if you will. But Thomas wrote that the decision threatens American Second Amendment liberties. He said that the case does not concern the issue of whether someone like Rahimi can be disarmed, but if the government has the right to disarm any person only subject to a protective order, whether or not that person has been convicted of a crime. And I think this is a valid point. Rahimi, at this point, had not been convicted of a crime, but I understand that he was a threat. And I understand that he was a threat to others and that he had allegedly perpetrated crimes, and that would make him a threat, a foreseeable threat. And it only makes sense. I get it. It's completely logical. But you have to look at the big picture when it comes to the Second Amendment. And this is where I know I lose some people, but I'm trying to look at the big picture. And that's exactly what Justice Clarence Thomas did as well. He went on to say this, quote, the framers and ratifying public understood that the right to keep and bear arms was essential to the preservation of liberty, close quote. He wrote this citing McDonald versus City of Chicago. He says, yet, in the interest of ensuring the government can regulate one subset of society, today's decision puts at risk Second Amendment rights of many more, close quote. Now, let me tell you why I agree with him, because obviously when you see a case with this guy, Rahimi, he sounds like he's a straight up thug, right? He was committing allegedly other crimes even after the restraining order was imposed against him from his ex, by the courts, regarding his ex-girlfriend. So he was out there committing other crimes allegedly, right? So it totally makes sense. But what about the people that are falsely accused? Yeah, I mean, I can tell you of cases that I've read, and I'm sure you've read. I remember a horrifying case where I believe a woman had asked for a gun, if I recall correctly, couldn't get the gun in time, and then her ex ended up murdering her. If I recall the story, it was so tragic. It was sad, and it was obvious the guy was evil, and he was going to come for her, and he did just that. All right. I mean, she had gone through a lot of stuff. So it was a very sad story. But the reason why stories like that are reported is because they tend to be, in the spectrum of things, rare. They're heinous, but rare. All right. So I don't know what the percentage is. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. I haven't even researched that. But you can bet that there are a lot of people that get charged with crimes where the charges are dropped, because eventually there's no evidence to prove that. It can be a he said, she said. So what happens to these people that are charged with a domestic violence? It's a he said, she said, but nothing ever occurred. These people their rights are their Second Amendment right, their right to be able to defend themselves is taken away. And now if there's a conviction, obviously it's a different story. Once you're convicted, you're in the system, your rights get taken away. But until then, it's really iffy. So the cool thing is I side with Justice Clarence Thomas on this. I'm not going to be, I just can't be. I side with Justice Clarence on this. Let me say that. I side with Justice Clarence on this, but I understand where the other justices came from or coming from on this. It makes sense to me, although I wish they would have erred with Justice Clarence Thomas. All right, guys, listen, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Again, remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast: Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble, por favor. Also, all things social media at the Carl Jackson Show: X, Instagram, Facebook, Truth Social, Getter, wherever I am on social media, the Carl Jackson Show. Carl Jackson merch. .itemorder.com. We got some cool t-shirts out. Love guns, hate tyranny. Skin ain't sin. The Promise t-shirt. It's Pride Month. Probably goes before fall, but anyway, that's why we have the Promise t-shirt. It's God's promise to us, the promise of second chances. And now these will be up. I was hoping this week, but they'll be up next week. The designs are done. The t-shirts are being t-shirts are being worked on, but none binary. And then my slogan: don't grow weary doing good. All right, it's a biblical slogan, but I use it, and so we've got cool t-shirts coming out next week too. So carljacksonmerch.itemorder.com. Don't forget to check out Priority Gold and My Pillow. Take advantage of those deals. 1-800-405 for Priority Gold. MyPillow.com, promo code Carl. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.